to today's reading, which is reading number 6, and we're also going to do reading 7. So basically, we're going to close out the Torah portion. So where we last ended off, and this is really important to know where we're up to in the narrative, where we last ended off, the brothers had finally convinced their father Jacob to send Benjamin down. Remember, Jacob did not want to send Benjamin. Jacob's fear was that Benjamin would also go missing. He had lost Joseph, he had lost Shimon, and his fear was that he would lose Benjamin, who was the second and final, if you will, final son of Rachel, his beloved first love. He did not want to lose Benjamin. Reuben said, you take my son's life, I'll bring him back. And Jacob says, no dice. Famine gets worse. Yehuda says, I'll take responsibility. And Jacob says, okay. And so Jacob finally acquiesces, agrees to send Benjamin. And now 10 brothers, 10 brothers come down. Shimon is already there, and Yosef is the viceroy. Reunion of all 12 brothers in this reading right now. Let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen with you because sharing is caring. Sharing screen. Let me go to the browser. Can you guys see that Torah reading from Miketz? Please, somebody unmute yourself and let me know.
Yes.
Yep.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, Torah reading from Miketz, reading number 6. All the brothers, the 10 brothers, including Benjamin, are now standing in front of Joseph. Genesis chapter 43, verse 16. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the overseer of his house, like his custodian or whatever, the manager of the house, bring the men into the house and give orders to slaughter an animal and to prepare, for the men will eat with me at lunch. So, you can see right away, this is not just a business transaction. They want to buy food. He thinks you're spies. Bring down your brother to corroborate. Fine. Okay, you can now buy food. They're now getting a personal invite into the palace or whatever, into his estate, mansion, to have lunch with the viceroy. Sounds like a reality series. Lunch with the viceroy. All right, let's continue verse 17. And the man, the head of the household, did as Joseph had said. And the man, this guy, brought the brothers, into Joseph's house. Verse 18. If you think it's strange, the brothers thought it was strange. Now the men were frightened because they had been brought into Joseph's house. This was not normal. They came to buy food. They brought down their brother, and now that they're being brought into Joseph's house for what? And they said, quote, on account of the money that came back in our sacks at first, we are brought to roll upon us and to fall upon us and to take us as slaves and our donkeys as well. So they're like, we're done. We're being marched into a trap. We're being brought into Joseph's house. He's going to sit us down, and he's going to accuse us of stealing the money. If you recall yesterday, when Joseph sent them home with food, he also included the money that they had given him. Yeah, he included the money in their luggage. And they found it, and they're like, oh no, what's the money? So they brought the money back. But now they're like, Joseph knew that thinks that we stole the money. He's going to accuse us, and now we're done.
Isn't this where he sits them according to their age chronologically?
One second. No? Yeah. We're going to get there in a second. So okay. They're afraid now for their lives, and not only their lives, our donkeys as well. It's funny how they say that. We're afraid not only he's going to take us as slaves, but also our donkeys. Oh no, the donkeys. By the way, you think it's silly. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but people are concerned about their possessions. People, God forbid, someone's house is on fire. They run out and they run back in to grab something, putting their own life at risk. I got to get the fill in the blank. So they're worried about their lives, and our donkeys also. It's human nature. We can look at them and point fingers, but you and I, we're the same way. It's human beings. We're stuck with our donkeys, with our love of whatever donkeys represent. 19. So they drew near the man who was over Joseph's house before they walked in, and they spoke to him at the entrance of the house. They were very apprehensive walking into that house. And they said to the head of the household guy, to the assistant fellow, they said, please, my lord, Again, they launch into the story. Please, my Lord, we came down at first to purchase food. They do a long-winded version of the story. We came down here to purchase food. And it came to pass when we came to the lodging place that we opened our sacks, and behold, each man's money was in the mouth of his sack, our money in full weight, and we returned it in our hands. In other words, they're basically coming clean because they think they're about to be accused of stealing. They're basically saying, we didn't steal. We came home. When we traveled back, we came to buy food. Eventually, we got the food. When we unpacked our luggage, we found the money, and we returned it in our hands. In other words, we brought it back with us because we're not thieves. If we were thieves, we wouldn't have come back. We're not thieves. We have the money with us. They're trying to preemptively, preempt the accusation. 22. And not only did we bring back the money, we brought down other money in our hands to purchase food. In other words, we have more money for you. We do not know who put our money into our sacks, but we didn't do it. It's not our fault. Verse 23, the head of the household dude, the assistant said, peace to you, shalom lachem, peace to you, fear not. Don't worry, take it easy. Y'all are too uptight. Your God and the God of your father gave you a treasure in your sacks. Your money came to me. In other words, we got your money. The money that you found, magic money, divine money, money from heaven, like manna from heaven, money from heaven. It's a treasure. It's a gift. God has blessed you with a gift. Don't worry about it. Stop stressing. You can imagine them schwitzing. They're sweating. Their hair, their faces are turning colors. Their hands are cold. They're all nervous about life, about this accusation. They're like, we didn't do it. We were honest. We don't know how it happened, but we have the money. And this guy's like, the money? Don't worry about that. We got your money. This money that you're talking about, gift, fluke, present, divine. All right, enjoy it. Sorry. And he brought, end of verse 23. And this fellow brought Simeon out to them, the incarcerated brother. So guess what? 11 brothers are standing there, plus one. Then 24, then the man brought the brothers into Joseph's house. And the man, the assistant guy, gave them water, and he washed their feet, and he gave fodder to their beloved donkeys. He even fed the animals that they were very concerned about. Verse 25, and they, the brothers, prepared the gift. Remember, they brought down stuff as a gift? What did they bring down? Some balm and wax and pistachios. Remember that? Jacob said, bring down some gifts. Smear Joseph a little bit. So they prepared the gift. They unpacked it from their suitcases, and they fluffed it up with a bow and a ribbon or whatever it is. They prepared the gift until Joseph would come at lunchtime, for they heard that there they would eat bread. In other words, they were told at some point that the reason why they're being brought into Joseph's house is to have lunch. So they were sitting there waiting for Joseph, the master of the house, right, the viceroy himself, to come by, and they'll eat together. And in the meantime, they prepared their gift. Verse 26, and Joseph came home, and they brought him the gift that was in their hands into the house, and they prostrated themselves to him to the ground. Guess what just happened? 11 brothers prostrated themselves to him on the ground. Ray, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that they bowed down to him as in the dream.
Yes, all 11 brothers now, finally the fruition, the fulfillment of the dream of the 11 bundles in the field bowing down to his bundle, and the 11 stars bowing down to his star. Finally, it's coming to fruition. Finally, it's happened. You have Joseph and 11 brothers, including Benjamin, bowing down to him. Verse 26 is where it all happens. Verse 27, he inquired after their welfare. How you doing? And he said to them, how is your father? Is your elderly father whom you mentioned well? Is he still alive? How is dad? Your dad. And they said, verse 28, your servant, our father, is well. He is still alive. And once again, they bowed and prostrated themselves to him. Verse 29, and he lifted his eyes, Joseph did, and he saw Benjamin, his brother, the son of his mother, right, Rachel? And he said, is this your little brother whom you told me about? And the answer was yes. It was a rhetorical question because he knew that obviously this was Benjamin. And Joseph said, "May God favor you, my son." He blesses Benjamin, his brother, right then and there. Well, you guessed it, folks. 1 second. You guessed it. Joseph is filled with emotion. Joseph is filled with emotion like nobody's business. 1 second. Why can't I open up my screen? Here it is. Joseph is filled with emotion, which, by the way, I need to tell you. Joseph, throughout the narrative, cries. We read about it yesterday where he's crying. He's going to cry again now. He cries later. He cries multiple times, a half a dozen times throughout this story, which also is a powerful lesson. I'll just share it right now. You know, after people undergo trauma, oftentimes it's hard to feel emotion. A person could become desensitized to emotion. Joseph, notwithstanding all of the trauma that he went through, if you will, I'm going to call it trauma, to him it wasn't traumatizing. And he remained open, he remained emotional, he remained emotionally available. And we see that in his reaction and in his tears, which takes us to reading number 7 as the dramatic story rolls on. Genesis chapter 43, verse 30. And Joseph hastened, for his mercy was stirred toward his brother Benjamin, and he wanted to weep. He couldn't control himself. He became emotional. So he went into the room and wept there. In other words, he got up from whichever room they were all in together. He went to a side room and he cried there. And he washed his face, verse 31, and he washed his face and came out. By the way, people dealt with tears the same way then as they deal now. You wash your face, right? He washed his face and came out and he restrained himself. In other words, he got back into character and he said, "Serve the food. The meal goes on." Okay. Verse 32, and they set for him separately and for them separately, and for the Egyptians who ate with him separately. In other words, they set different settings for the food. Why? Because the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, because it is an abomination to the Egyptians. So already you can see the origins of bias, of Egyptian prejudice. The Egyptians would never eat with the Hebrew, right? They would never eat with these Jews, whatever, these Hebrews. So Joseph, they set separate seating, if you will, like a table for the brothers, a table for Joseph, a table for the Egyptians. And that's the way the meal was facilitated. Take a look at this. Yes, Donna.
But did Pharaoh know that Joseph was Hebrew?
Pharaoh knew.
Oh,
Pharaoh knew.
Okay.
He may have thought, because remember when Pharaoh was introduced first to Joseph, the butler said there was a Hebrew slave. So he knew he was a Hebrew. What had happened was that once he was elevated to viceroy, remember that Pharaoh gave him a new name, which almost signifies a new identity. So in Pharaoh's mind, he had transformed him. He had converted him to an Egyptian and away from being a Hebrew. So when now he's confronted with Hebrews, Joseph had to keep up the appearance of protocol, where Hebrews are seated separately and Egyptians are separate. And of course, he's the viceroy, he's sitting separate. So does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. All right, excellent question. Verse 33. And this is what Ray was mentioning a moment ago. The brothers sat before Joseph, the firstborn according to his age, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at each other in astonishment. In other words, they were seated. You know, when you go to a fancy dinner, you have the cards with your name on it. Well, that's how it was in Joseph's palace as well, where the brothers were seated with cards. They didn't just sit down on their own. They were told where to sit, and the order was exactly age order. It was lined up. Now these were all adults. Joseph was at least 37. He was 30 when he stood before Pharaoh. That was at the beginning of the 7 years of plenty. So Joseph was at least 37 years old. His brothers were all older. They're all in their 40s or 50s, right? So these are older people, and it's hard to distinguish between someone who's 51 and 53. Joseph seats them in the right order, in the exact age order. They were blown away. They were astonished. How does he know, or how did he guess right? How did they get us in the right order here, age order? 34. Well, the answer is because he was Joseph and he knew who they were. 34. And he had portions brought to them from before him. That each one was brought food. And Benjamin's portion was 5 times as large as the portion of any of them. He serves Benjamin more. You see what's going on here? He's stirring jealousy. Do you see what's going on here? He's favoring Benjamin. Does this sound familiar?
Yes.
It sounds familiar, right? Now,
Yes.
on the one level, you could say that it's because Benjamin is his brother from his mother and he loves him a little bit more than, but it's also, the bigger picture is, as we'll discuss maybe today, but certainly next week, the whole purpose of all of this, this entire scheme, was to get the brothers in a similar position as they were when they saw Joseph, to get them jealous of Benjamin and see if they would sell out Benjamin or if they would come to his rescue. If they would come to his rescue, then Joseph would know that they had done tshuva, that they had repented from their ways. So he's trying to set up a similar scenario where he's favoring the youngest, favoring the Benjamin, and seeing how they would react. So he gives Benjamin 5 times as much as any of them, and they drank and became intoxicated with him. So they drank wine and they ate. It was a good meal. Verse 1, chapter 44. Then Joseph commanded the overseer of his house, saying, fill the men's sacks with food, as much as they can carry, and put each man's money into the mouth of his sack. Put the money again, and the triple money, whatever extra they brought. Give all the money back to them. Fill up the luggage, fill up the bags with as much food as you can stuff. Take a look at this, verse 2. This was a private message from Joseph to the head of household guy, to the dude who was managing, to the manager. I'm going to call him the manager from now on because I've been struggling with an adjective. The manager. All right. Verse 2. And my goblet, says Joseph to his manager, and my goblet, the silver goblet, which, by the way, was not just a nice cup. It was his, alleged sorcerer's cup. It wasn't really. He didn't practice black magic, but it was the goblet that was like his prized possession, if you will. And my goblet put into the mouth of the sack of the youngest, Benjamin, and return his purchase money. And the manager of the house did according to Joseph's word, which he had spoken. Oh, baby, you see what's going on here. Once again, setting up a scenario. Benjamin is being favored, and now Benjamin is being framed. Verse 3, the morning became light. In other words, it was the next morning, and the men were sent on their way, they and their donkeys. So the day before was the meal, the day, the celebration, the party at the palace, at Joseph's palace. The next morning, they go on their way. Verse 4, they had exited the city, but had not gone far, when Joseph said to the overseer of his house, get up, pursue the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, quote, why have you repaid good with evil? Is this how you repay me? Is this how you treat me? I brought you into my house. I fed you my food. I gave you, lots of honors that no one else gets. And this is how you pay me back. Verse 5. This is what you should say. Is not this the one my master drinks from? Why, he even divines with it, as I told you a moment ago. This is his magical cup. You have done evil by the way you have acted. In other words, go catch up to the brothers and accuse them of theft. What theft? Theft of my royal divining goblet. I hope everyone is with me with the plot here. Let's continue. Verse 6. So the manager overtook them, and he said these words to them. Just what you read before, what Joseph said that he should say. He accused them of theft. And they said to him, why should my master say such words as these? Far be it from your servants to do a thing like this. We would never steal. Right? And to prove it, verse 8, behold, the money we found in the mouth of our sacks the first time, we returned to you from the land of Canaan. So how could we steal from your master's house silver or gold? We would never steal. And then they go further. Whichever one of your servants with whom it is found, whichever one of your servants with whom it is found shall die. And also we will be slaves to my master. In other words, you're not going to find it with us. If you do, you can kill that person. You You can take that person's life and we'll also be slaves. That's how confident they were that none of them had taken or had in their possession the goblet of Joseph. And the messenger, the head of the what did I call him? The manager. And the manager said, now indeed, so it is as you've spoken. You want to make a deal? Deal. But the one with whom it is found shall be my slave, and you shall be cleared. I agree with you that we should find the thief culpable, but I'm not going to kill him and put the rest of you in jail. I'm like, no, I'm gonna give you even a better deal than you're proposing. Only the one who stole it will be a slave. The rest of you can go home to your dad. So, well, then for sure they're fine with this because, they know that none of them stole it. So they hastened and each one lowered his sack to the ground, and each one, feeling very confident, opened his sack. And the man searched. He started with the eldest and finished with the youngest. And you guessed it, the goblet was found in the youngest, in Benjamin's sack. And that was impossible. And that was not, it wasn't even a possibility to them that should happen. So they rent their garments. They tore their garments like you do like one does when they hear about the passing of a loved one. They literally tore their garments in mourning, and each one loaded his donkey, and they returned to the city. They basically came back to the city with doom and gloom all over them. Like, we're done. We're done. Benjamin's done. Our dad is done. You cannot get worse. You cannot get worse. The story cannot get worse right now for them. Their lives are done. At this point, at this moment, their lives are ruined, done, finito. Benjamin's a goner. They're goners. Their father's a goner. Life is done. Life is over. Verse 14. And Judah and his brothers, Judah, of course, now, and you know this, Judah was the leader. Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and Joseph was still there, and they fell before him upon the ground. And Joseph said to them, what is this deed that you've committed? Don't you know that a person like me practices divination? Don't you know that I use my cup to know the future? And Judah said, what shall we say to my master? What shall we speak, and how shall we exonerate ourselves? In other words, there's nothing that we can say to explain this. We have no way to explain or to justify our actions. There's nothing to say. We didn't do it, but that's going to sound empty and hollow. There's nothing that we can say to make this better. God has found your servants' iniquity. In other words, God is punishing us. It's clear to us that this is God setting us up for punishment, for our iniquity, alluding to the sale of Joseph, by the way. So therefore, behold, we are my Lord's servants, both we and the one in whose possession the goblet has been found. We're all going to be your slaves. Benjamin and us, we're all in it together, band of brothers, 11 of us. You're locking one away, you lock us all away. Joseph said, far be it from me to do this. Chas v'shalom, chalila, I would never do such a thing. That's not justice. The man in whose possession the goblet was found, he shall be my slave. But as for you, go up in peace to your father. Lech alu l'shalom, go ahead, go on in peace. I don't need to keep you all. You're good. You didn't do anything wrong. Benjamin did. That's how the Torah portion ends. Talk about drama, my friends. You're not going to find a more dramatic story than Joseph. You're not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to find it in Torah. You're not. You're not going to find a character like Joseph in Torah. This dude is the bomb. I mean, this story is crazy. The story is out of control. And I'm not even giving you Kabbalah on the story right now. I'm just reading the story and giving you a little bit of classic commentary to explain the narrative. Joseph is the ultimate setup guy. He sets them up. Everything, game, set, match, checkmate. He's got them and they're done. And by the way, to them, their life is ruined. But at least they have each other. When he tells them now, the last verse, no. You don't need to all be my slaves. You didn't do anything wrong. Benjamin will be my slave. But you go to your father. What are they thinking? We're going to go back to dad without Benjamin? That's the one thing that he wanted in life is the Benjamin should be secure. And we're going to go home and say, oh, by the way, Shimon's back, but we lost Benjamin. So Joseph's gone and Benjamin out. How's that going to work out? They're done. You understand what's happening here? They're facing a problem that has no solution to them. There's no you're in a room and it's locked and there's no key. There's no way out of this. There's literally, from their perspective, there's no way out. The cup was in the bag. They all saw it there. They don't know how it got there. It's done. They stole. Somehow they ended up with Joseph's goblet. They're done. You know what's crazy? As impossible as this is to get out of, in truth, they're never for a moment in danger. Not for one moment are they in real danger. Are you with me on that? They think not only are they in danger, they're in such danger that it's impossible to get out of this danger. And in truth, not for 1 second were they ever in harm's way. Joseph was never intending on actually harming them. They were never in danger, but to them, they were in the greatest danger. Talk about perspective. You and I go through life and some challenges seem so real to us and we don't know what to do or how to do it. Just remember the Joseph story. I'm going to say it again. Joseph is the bomb. The Joseph story is life. It is life itself. The next time we face a challenge that seems impossible, remind yourself of the Joseph story and remember the brothers. There was no way out. No way out. There was never actually danger. There was no way out from their perspective, but they didn't see it correctly. They didn't have information. With a little bit more information, they would have known, or had they had more information, they would have realized that there's no issue. There's no issue here. They're safe. If we have emunah, when we have bitachon, when we have faith in God, trust in God, what that means is that we know that no matter how formidable the challenge seems down here, through our limited perspective, that's all it is. It's all the perspective, the perception of a challenge. The challenge is not real because we're in God's hands. That's what it means to have faith. More than faith, to trust in God. Even the money says that. You know, it says in God we trust. That's what that means. In God we trust means that I know that the challenge is really not a challenge. It is a challenge, but I know that ultimately, it's not the way it appears. Anyway, some food.
Sound.
We lost you, Rabbi. Can someone send him a note? Let's see.
No sound, Rabbi.
Okay, questions, comments?
Oh. Yeah, I have a question, please. So
Sure.
Is Joseph the only brother of the 12 brothers that had faith in God?
So it's interesting. Joseph we know that Joseph, we mentioned this before many times, Joseph has this incredible, unshakable faith. No matter what happens to him, he's in God's hands. The brothers, when they're faced with challenge, what do they say? God's trying to get me. You see that? You see the difference? They also believe that it came from God, but there's a different perspective. By the way, you have, different personalities maybe, but also different levels of faith. They also believe that it's divinely ordained, but they thought it's divine punishment. I mean, have you ever met somebody who says, I think God's trying to get me, right? Joseph believed God's trying to bless me, not get me. Even when he was being thrown into a dungeon, he's like, this is a blessing. You see how crazy that perspective is? Well, I don't mean like crazy. I don't mean like Meshuggah. I mean how crazy high, crazy lofty, crazy special Joseph's perspective is. It's one thing to believe it's coming from God, but you could also believe that it's coming from God as a punishment, God forbid. right? God's getting me back for all the things that I did not so good. Joseph said, it's from God and it's good. If the answer to your question is yes, you're correct. If the brothers had Joseph's perspective, but not that they didn't believe in God, but they believed in a different kind of God, right? If the brothers, let me just speak it out. If the brothers believed in the same God that Joseph believed in, or the same way that Joseph believed in God, you know what they would have said? God is putting us here to challenge us for an opportunity that we're yet to discover. But they wouldn't have panicked. Joseph never panics. Not once. Not once in the narrative.
How is it that he's the only one of the 12 that's able to have this perspective?
I don't know. I don't have the answer. Is it nature? Is it nurture? But I'll tell you this, it's a lesson for us, for you and I, because you and I often panic. I don't know you. I'm not saying that I'm saying you and I as human beings, we, right? Not specifically you, but we as human beings panic, right?
Well, also, he had a lot of other trials and tribulations. He got thrown in the pit. He got sold as a slave. He got thrown in prison. He on and on and on. He had experience with God protecting him.
Well, but I think it's deeper than that. I think that he was able to be safe because he knew, he never panicked even in those moments. We don't find him panicking even when he's going through the original time. So listen, I agree that the brothers did not have the same type of faith as Joseph. How did he have it? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, the lesson for us is we should panic less. I feel like we should do alliteration. Pray more? No. We should panic less and trust. Yeah, but that's not a P. Trust. No. We should panic less and trust more. But really trust. Not believe that God is trying to get me, God forbid, but God is trying to get me into a situation where I'm going to experience the greatest blessings. That's literally what's going on in this narrative. And that's the message of the Joseph story. How do you look at adversity? Is it terrible? Is it a punishment? Is it divine vengeance, God forbid? Or is it divine opportunity? It's a crazy perspective. Joseph is like, who does that? Joseph. That's why he's Joseph. That's why he's Joseph. If you and I were to somehow work on ourselves, meditation, prayer, study, practice, however we would get there, read the Joseph story every day, whatever. If you and I would get to that place where we would really and honestly believe and trust that this is going to work out, our lives would be radically different. We would find magic. We would find the magic in those moments of despair. We would find consistently the silver lining, not just in theory, but we would experience the silver linings. We would experience the blessings because we're looking for them, because we know they're there. It's when you're in a defeatist place and cringing or crouching from getting beat on by life that you miss out on all the silver linings, all the opportunity there. This is the Joseph legacy. Anyway, it's a wild story. It's a wild story. It's the greatest story ever told, in my opinion. All right, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for joining us together. Torah in the car. Not only Jerry Seinfeld, comedian in the car is getting coffee. This is, Rabbi and junior rabbis in the car teaching Torah, coming to Netflix near you. All right,
Really cool.
That's it. That's it for today. Mark, great to see you. Sandrine, Matt, Ray, Donna, Joy, have a wonderful Shabbat. Enjoy the last day of Hanukkah. We'll see you next week. Listen, Monday morning or 12 o'clock Monday noon, the story continues, right? What happens next? Don't read ahead. I'm kidding. You can read ahead, but we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up. All right. Shabbat shalom.
Shalom. Thank you.
Mazel tov to your son.
Thank you.
Mazel tov, Nathan.
Mazel tov.
Bye, everybody. Take care.